At first, I wanted to make this video as a way to get people to uninstall and remove the game Hatchetman Cove from their game accounts, but I soon realised pretty much no one has ever played it. But if you, by any chance, happen to own a copy, please, I urge you, remove it. Uninstall and forget it. Don't look back. Don't touch it ever again. I'll tell you why. A friend of mine bought a 3-pack of Hatchetman Cove back in 2009. It was a multiplayer game, where 3 people are paired up against a single strong player on the opposite team. Kind of like an early horror game. This game might very well be a spiritual predecessor. The similarities between those games are pretty eerie. I'm sure at least one person on the development team has a copy of Hatchetman Cove, and that kind of worries me. See, Hatchetman Cove was this game where you played in cycles, kind of like a red light green light game. 3 people play as survivors from a ship that crashed into the cove, and a 4th player gets to play as the killer. The killer wasn't necessarily some slasher with an axe. It could be a vengeful angel, a grim reaper, or several other kinds of killer. At least that was the original plan. So the game would alter between having bright lights all over the map, going on and off. While they were on, the killer would notice any kind of movement with a ping. When the lights were off, survivors could move any way they want, as long as they didn't draw too much attention. They could set up traps to delay the killer, or sabotage the lights to get more time. The killer, on the other hand, was to grab the survivors and drown them in the well at the centre of the map. Once a survivor was grabbed, the other survivors are given a choice to either try and intercept the killer using traps, or use the time to gain an advantage. The problem was that Hatchetman Cove didn't sell very well. The developers had some legal trouble with their publisher, who were annoyed about the developers backing out of an exclusive deal. There was no promotion online or anywhere else, as the publishers didn't want it released on another platform. They didn't want it released at all for another 6 months, until the game had the proper infrastructure. The devs screwed up and published it anyway, and the whole thing was a mess. Still, during the months that it was active, there was a fairly regular player base. My friends and I played it pretty much every day for about a month. I mained Sturgis as a survivor, the Norwegian fisherman who could lure the killer using his fishing rod. As a killer, there were only 2 options at the time, the Hatchet Man and the Blameless. I preferred to play the Hatchet Man. He was straightforward. You got a hatchet, could destroy shelters, and had a certain resistance to traps. The Blameless, she was just weird. They never managed to balance her right. The Blameless was an old woman. She was slow, but she floated around the map and avoided all ground-based traps. She always had this warm smile, and her passive ability was just the weirdest. If she was far away, she'd look like a random ally on your team. Only when she got closer would she reveal that sinister, smiling face. Hatchetman was just a murderer, but the Blameless was downright creepy. But the game didn't get any updates because of the legal battle. No updates, no new survivors, no killers, nothing. Instead, the game went silent. We stopped playing, and a few months later, the game was unceremoniously unlisted and removed from the store without as much as an apology. I uninstalled Hatchetman Cove and didn't think about it for years. Just one of those games that rests in the back catalogue. I forgot I even had it. But this is where things get weird. Last December, I was gifted a new chilled-out farming game as a Christmas present, and some primal part of my reptile brain clicked back in on Hatchetman Cove. The friends I used to play with had moved on with their lives, but the game still had a community page. I checked the store page, and it was empty. The game couldn't be found online either. It was completely hidden. If you don't actually have it in your library, you won't find it without a direct link. That, in itself, is kinda weird. Most abandoned games can still be found online. But Hatchetman Cove still had a very, very active community. There were plenty of discussions on the forums, but they didn't make any sense. Their speech was almost garbled. I'm sure whatever they discussed made sense to them, but to an outsider, it seemed like nonsense. A few examples. Topic: how much GW to finish no min? I want to finish no min, I dunno yet. Just don't GW then, sort it out. You'll never go min if you don't GW, just commit. The discussion forum is just a mess. The example above was the most legible thing I could find, and I still have no idea what it says. So I started checking out the community content, like videos and screenshots. The way the community played the game was completely different from when I played. Pretty much no one played Hatchetman anymore. The killer seemed limited to the blameless. Not a single screenshot of the Hatchetman, just the blameless. But the weirdest thing was how players interacted with the killer. Instead of hiding, they come running up to her. They run up to her with their microphones on, screaming at her. Screaming, begging, pleading for her to kill them. Not with funny voices or anything, no. There were people crying in chat. Videos marked with GW and various dates littered the community page, each with people crying and screaming and begging to die. The volume maxed out immediately, and most of the time, all voices were nothing but a crackling mess that could easily blow out your speakers. I couldn't stop watching. I'd never seen anything like it, not even back in the days when I was still playing. That wasn't the way you played the game. No one was hiding or looking for objectives. I'd see players using my old main, Sturgis, and just rush the blameless as soon as the match started. Seeing the 3D model of the old bearded man running up to the blameless, pleading to die. That was uncomfortable. I made the mistake of posting my own question on the discussion forum. I was just too curious. You have to remember, at this point, this was still just a weird blip in my library. I made my own topic and just asked what the hell happened to the game. I got no responses in a week. Nothing. After that, things have gotten weird. Real weird. It started with a first-person shooter game I was playing. One night, a teammate came on and just started screaming. No big deal at first, just another troll. But he was screaming at me, specifically. Screaming at me, begging me to shoot him. There was crying. He was desperate, asking me to please team kill him. He offered to send me money, trade rare skins, whatever I wanted. He got kicked before I even knew what to say. 2 games later, the same guys joined my team with a different username and clan tag. He keeps screaming, crying and begging. My teammates laughed, but I was getting uncomfortable. I stopped playing. Hearing a grown man barely being able to breathe between sobs is just too much. That wasn't a prank. That was desperation. But it didn't stop there. From that moment on, in several games, people started joining and begging me to kill them. It could be by text, in chat, by voice, whatever they could. Once, in another popular game I was playing, there were 2 people with the usernames Kill Me and Kill Me Too. How? You can't even pick your own username. They just stood there, waiting for me to push them over the edge. These colourful little blob people just made my stomach crawl, because I knew that whoever controlled them was sitting there, screaming in a complete panic behind the screen. It just kept going. In another game, I used to have the setting to hear and be heard by everyone enabled, but I had to stop. Naked users came running at me while I was camping out, and I turned off all audio as soon as I saw them. I was shaking as I realised the mute setting didn't work, and I force closed my game. I swear, for a few seconds after the game had closed, I could still hear them. I threw my headphones across the room and walked away from the computer, just holding my head and quivering. I didn't know what to do. I could barely be at my computer. I went back to the Hatchetman Cove forums and just started reporting people. I also reported all videos, and I just flagged everything. I know, I abused the report system, but things were getting out of hand. I was being harassed. So they took it down. Not just the forums or the videos, but everything. The entire page gone, including the community page. I could still see the name Hatchetman Cove in my library at that point, but nothing showed up when I clicked it. The sites probably didn't care much, and didn't bother to do a review of my reports. It was just easier to pull the plug. And for a while, that did the trick. I actually got back online. Then, it got worse than ever. Random people started joining our voice server, just screaming into our ears. No matter how many times we banned them or muted them, they just kept coming back. My friends noticed that as long as I was offline, their voices stayed away, so my server figured I was playing a prank or something. At first they thought it was kind of funny, but the more it happened, the more they were getting frustrated. Some were getting scared and sent me private messages asking me to please, as friends, stop. Today I'm permabanned. I can't even log back on without getting messages from random accounts, begging me to come online and kill them. It's gotten to the point where I've uninstalled pretty much everything. I don't play games anymore, and I don't think I'll be browsing online much longer either, since I've started getting messages here too. Not just here, but on my phone as well. Texts in the middle of the night, random calls from unknown numbers. Last week, I found traces of handprints on my kitchen window. Not just one or two, but dozens. A neighbour told me there'd been someone shouting outside my door when I was out buying groceries the other day. I'm considering calling the police, but I don't know what to say. I don't even know if I'm in danger. I can't get the bland face of the Blameless out of my head. I dream of her asking me, without moving her crinkled old mouth, if I want it all to stop. And I say yes. I go to her, dressed as old Sturgis, standing alongside the others with my fishing rod. First I ask her to end it all, but the others speak louder, and she can't hear me. Then I ask again, trying to speak over the others. Soon I find myself screaming. We all scream, louder and louder, begging, pleading, crying for her attention. We all want it to stop, but she refuses to oblige. Instead, she just smiles, holding some sort of beautiful secret behind her pixelated, dead eyes. I don't know what it is, but I want it. I'm starting to understand, but at the same time, I'm disgusted. Please, stay away from Hatchetman Cove.